name's Philip Bundy and I operate Bundy Farm. We're running about 275 cows. Right now I raise my own replacement heifers, and I got about 100 fall cows and 175 spring calving cows. These calves here behind us are calves that are ready to be weaned here in a couple of weeks, and they'll be marketed through our VQA cattle sales here in Virginia. And these calves were predominantly born in September. Had a few Octobers, but they're on about a 60-day calving period. Genetics-wise, I'm using performance-tested Angus bulls, and on everything right now. No crossbreeding, other than some of my cows are crossbred, you know, that I bought. And here on this farm, we've bought about 3 farms that join here, and there's about 300 acres here, and I've been cleaning up about 100 of it. This field here we're standing in was in solid briars about 4 years ago, and we've been spraying every year and battling that, and ran a bulldozer through them to start with and piled them, and the backside was cedars, and they're gone, and didn't have to do much seeding. I unrolled about 400 rolls of hay on it that first winter and got a lot of grass seed manure on it, and you can see the edge of it here. It's gotten into pretty good grass now. On animal health, on the cow side, I use a Bovishield Gold pre-breed with the VL5 in it. They'll get a blackleg shot, dewormer, usually use an injectable in the fall, and in the spring I'll use some kind of pour-on dewormer. And on the fall cows, pretty much just preg check in April, and the pour-on, that's about all they get in the spring. Everything else in the fall. The spring calving group in the spring will get the Bovishield Gold VL5 with the black leg. In the fall they'll get a lepto booster and get the E. coli vaccine, which has been a really helpful tool. That stopped calf scours for me. Don't have hardly any trouble with that. And the fall calves, you don't have hardly any trouble with it anyway, so I don't use it on them. Calf side, my calves will get spring calves. I just worked them in about 2 weeks ago. We gave a Bovishield Gold 5, Vision 7 Somnus, and these calves all get a Vision 7 2020 at birth, and then I booster it in the spring. And so they're ready to wean now, and at weaning I'll give a Bovishield Gold with the Pasturella with the 1 shot, and another Vision with Somnus, and they'll get an implant and dewormed at weaning, and that's both groups will get that. On my feeding program and grazing, of course normally I can graze these cows till November in the pasture, and if it doesn't get dry, and cut the hay here 2 times, and then try to get it up in August a second time and stockpile for fall grazing. And particularly on these fall cows, I try to get them in there in November and kind of flush them pre-breeding with that good stockpiled grass. And hayfield management on this, I try to take my cows out. When they eat it up, I get them out of these hayfields. I don't hold them, let them in there in the winter anymore. It really improves my first cutting. I've got places that I do have to winter on the hayfields, and you know, it's reduced on the first cutting unless it's really wet, pre-harvest on the hay. And as far as feeding, then I unroll all of my hay. And this year's my first year with net wrap. I added net wrap onto my baler, and got Scott to look up a study that he had published in the paper, and it's between net wrap and string sitting out, looked like about a 10% hay savings. And on my hay crop, that's about 120 rolls of hay savings by using net wrap. So I'll pay for my attachment in 1 year on my hay crop. And so we'll see how that preserves my hay this year. And I also supplemented my cows about 4 to 5 pounds of grain on the spring and fall cows, and I think that's really going to improve my weaning weight on these fall calves in particular. And that's about what I do on feeding, and try to about 25 cows per roll, something like that on these big rolls. As far as weaned calves, when I wean my calves, I've been using a 4-way mix. It's gluten, cracked corn, and soy hulls, and then it's got about 200 pounds of distiller's grain in it to round out the ton, and that's been working real well. You can easily get over 2 pounds a day with it, and I'll wean probably about 45 to 50 days, at least 45, because that's what we have to do, and usually around 50 or so. And but I'll feed them 8 or 10 pounds of that mix through the weaning period, and they shed off and clean up really good, and they're ready for the sale. I've got several of these ball water troughs spread around, and a couple of the open tire troughs, and they were just put in out of necessity. This farm here that we're standing on is a little piece of property I bought that joined an existing farm, and it was in standing timber last year, and we've got the timber off and clear cut and seeded it, and got the cattle in here grazing what grass came up, and trying to keep the weeds beat down. And we'll probably put the helicopter in here probably next spring and spray this real good, and hopefully clean some of this filth up. And then we use these troughs out of necessity because there's no water on this property, and the farm next door doesn't have any surface water anymore, just seasonal. The creek has changed and dried up, so we've gone to using these so they're available to the cattle in the winter and don't have to break ice out of them.